All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast and presentation. I am very honored to be here with Sally Fallon Morrow. Hi, Sally.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. Let me get right into this and introduce you. So, Sally Fallon is the president of the Weston A Price Foundation, and this foundation has more than 13,000 members and includes over 400 local chapters. She's also the founder of a campaign for real milk, and she is a best-selling author of many books. One that's very well known is Nourishing Traditions, which is the cookbook that challenges politically correct nutrition and diet dictocrats. So much of Sally's career has been dedicated to dispelling myths about whole food nutrition and traditional eating habits. And what she has to bring to us today is a lot of information that you'll find very valuable about how to create health and proper nutrition through the use of Weston A. Price's teachings and how he relayed how to make people more healthy with a traditional diet. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sally and have her tell a little bit about herself to us.
Oh dear. Uh, well, thank you. Yes, I seem to have a knack for being a contrarian, and starting with my book, Nourishing Traditions, which really challenged this idea that we should avoid animal fats and cholesterol, and when in fact, the animal fats and cholesterol are vital to our health. And if we're avoiding them, we're not going to be healthy. So that's one. Raw milk, of course, gives the people in the public health departments just a tizzy. But I have been campaigning for what I call real milk, raw, unpasteurized, whole, pasture-fed milk since 1999. And we've made a lot of progress. Raw milk is the fastest growing agricultural commodity or product right now. I've challenged this idea that we should avoid salt. Salt is essential. It's essential for children. It's essential for adults. And of course, I've challenged the idea that a vegetarian diet is healthy when in fact there's many problems associated with it. At the same time, I've challenged the idea that we should be eating these high protein diets. The healthy diet is moderate protein, pretty high in fat, and moderate carbohydrates. So,
Yeah.
if you've got a premise, I've got a challenge for you.
Great. Yeah, no, we actually have referred to your works and teachings at our practice for many years now. And it's just amazing the results people get by adopting that type of diet and engaging in foods that follow that outline that you just talked about. And in fact, you're probably one of our most referred to books. The book we have downstairs is, we've had to buy a new one a couple times now. So.
Well, I think diet is about 80% of the road to health, but it's the absolute essential starting point is getting a nutrient-dense diet, and particularly dense in the nutrients that we get from organ meats and animal fats. So these are vitamins A, D, and K. That was Dr. Price's big discovery, that these traditional people, their diets were 10 times higher in these fat-soluble nutrients than his diet of Americans in his day, and it would be a bigger discrepancy today. So first of all, and we need to get the foods containing these vitamins back in our diet and not taking vitamin pills. In fact, I'm very concerned about people taking a lot of vitamin D. It's very dangerous. It's really dangerous. Yeah. It can lead to all sorts of problems. I just lost a friend who was taking high doses of vitamin D thinking this was going to protect him, and it doesn't. Of course, you need vitamin D in your diet, but it has to be supported with vitamins A and K, or the vitamin D will deplete your body of A and K, and then you're really in trouble. So we are not pill pushers. We recommend getting these nutrients from food.
Makes sense. Yeah. I'd like to specifically cover today, kind of busting some of the myths around particular types of fat that are healthy and that should be in a person's diet, like saturated fat, cholesterol. Can you talk a little bit about why there's a negative vibe about them?
Yes. So, the everybody seems to be agreed. Saturated fat and cholesterol are bad for you. This was
Right.
a marketing campaign. It started in the early 1920s with Procter and Gamble when they invented Crisco, which they wanted to have people to use instead of lard, and margarine, which they wanted people to use instead of butter. So how could they get people to use their product and not butter and lard? And what they did was embark on a campaign of demonizing the things that are in butter and lard and are not in the vegetable oils. And number one is saturated fat, and number two is cholesterol. So they began this campaign. Oh, you shouldn't eat saturated fat and cholesterol. Eat our wonderful products instead. I mean, it was blatant advertising. And it was brilliant. It was a brilliant advertising campaign, made people afraid of the fats that had nourished us for thousands of years. And so the consumption of butter and lard plummeted. The consumption of hardened fats like margarine and shortening, and then the liquid vegetable oils skyrocketed. And of course, you can't prove anything with statistics, but it looks very suspicious that all of our diseases, heart disease, cancer, problems with children, even things like depression,
Right.
went up as people abandoned the traditional fats that had nourished people for thousands and thousands, forever.
Right.
And when you go back and look at traditional cultures, that was what they valued the most. When they killed an animal, if that animal was too lean, it was called rubbish, and they threw it away.
Wow.
Yeah. And the first thing they ate in an animal was the fat and the fatty organs, the liver, the brain, the marrow, and the tongue. Those were cut out and eaten immediately. And the rest was cut up. The meat was cut up and dried or smoked, and all the fat was saved. And when they ate the meat, they always ate it with the fat. They never ate lean meat. And yet that's what we're being told to do: skinless chicken breast, lean meat,
Right.
egg whites without the
Yeah.
yolk, skim milk, and protein powders. Well, there's a real danger of eating protein without the fat. And that is that to use protein, you need vitamin A. And if you are eating protein without the fat and not getting any vitamin A with it, your body goes to the liver and says, hey, I need some vitamin A here so I can use all this protein. And the quickest way to deplete your body of vitamin A is a high protein, low fat diet. And a lot of people think
Wow.
that's what we're all about, lots of meat, but we're not. We're about getting the good fats. And that means fats from animals that are raised outside on pasture, so they'll have all these vitamins in them.
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. And is there a reason the animals have to be pasture raised as opposed to the conventional? Like, what happens to the fat in the conventional animals?
Well, what happens is that if the animal is on green grass, the animal will be making vitamin A from the carotenes and vitamin K2 from the K1 in the grass.
Okay.
And then if they're in the sunlight, they'll be making vitamin D. So, and they'll all be in balance. They'll all be natural. There's 1,000 types of vitamin D, 1,000
Oh, cool.
isomers of vitamin D. Yeah. And if you're taking a vitamin D pill, you're just getting one of them. And that's in itself going to lead to imbalances. But also, if
Sure.
you're taking vitamin D, the body says, well, I need vitamin A and vitamin K to go with the vitamin D because we use them all together. And that's how you deplete yourself of these other two critical nutrients. So,
Wow.
yeah, my kids call it the vitamin triangle, K on the
Yeah,
top and A and D on the bottom. So,
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I hadn't heard it referred that way, but that makes a lot of sense.
vitamin K is really the top of the vitamin hit parade right now. But it was the Weston A Price Foundation that revived interest in it because nobody really thought it had to do with anything for many years. And
Right.
now we realize that vitamin K is just critical for growth, for hormone production, for good feel good chemicals. Vitamin K makes sure we put the calcium and phosphorus in the bones and teeth instead of in the soft tissues.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Wow.
so vitamin K prevents hardening of the arteries. It also prevents cavities because if you have vitamin K in your saliva, your teeth will be replenished with calcium and phosphorus continually, and you won't get cavities.
Wow. Okay. That just handles like a whole host of modern problems.
And so where do we get vitamin K? We get vitamin K from bird fat. So eating a
Okay.
skinless chicken breast is really a bad idea. You want to eat the skin and the fat, duck fat, duck liver, goose liver, chicken liver. These are all really good sources of vitamin K. And the other is cheese, especially
Really?
aged cheeses from grass-fed animals,
Okay.
because the fermentation creates more vitamin K than what's in the butter fat. So,
Really? And how would you, so like a
yeah.
cheddar cheese or a harder
Yeah,
cheese?
yeah. One of the most potent sources of vitamin K is bear fat.
Really?
Now,
Okay.
I've tried to find bear fat on the internet, but
Yeah, I've
I
never
couldn't
had
find it.
that.
Not pure bear fat, but bear fat was considered like a sacred food by the Native Americans. And
Wow.
if a couple couldn't get pregnant, they went on the bear fat diet, and that solved it.
Oh my gosh.
They just ate bear fat for about a month, and they said it always worked.
That's incredible. Okay, so it sounds like it's not just about having the different fat soluble vitamins you get from these healthy fats, but also that they're in balance.
Yes,
That okay.
yes. More and more, and this is, I mean, this is kind of like an almost a new revelation, like
Um,
the B vitamins. If you're getting a lot of B1 and B3 added to your food, it's going to create a deficiency in the other B vitamins.
right.
And also, if you're taking B vitamins, you have to methylate all those vitamins, and that might not be such a good idea either. We can almost overdo on the vitamins, certain
Really?
vitamins.
Okay. So it's also not so much just about getting a whole bunch, and definitely not taking supplements that throw everything out of balance. That would be actually detrimental to health.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
One thing that we promote is fermented foods, and fermented foods have a lot of B vitamins in them. So, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, how do these fat soluble vitamins we get from the healthy fat? Do they also complement the B vitamins and the other water soluble vitamins?
They certainly complement the minerals. And Dr. Price said it's possible to starve for minerals without the fat soluble activators. So you need AD and K from the animal fats to use minerals. So you can be eating an organic diet and getting lots of minerals, but they go to waste if you're not using the fats with them. And this is why we say it's important to put butter on your vegetables and cream in your soup and eat the yolk of the egg and all the fats so that you absorb the minerals in your food.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yep. So one question that we get a lot when we're working with clients is cholesterol and why
Yeah.
we're recommending they eat so many eggs and other foods high in cholesterol. Can you speak to that? Break that myth a little bit for us here.
Okay, well, there's just so much wrong with this. First of all, even the cholesterol proponents, even Ansel Keys said that eating foods with cholesterol in them made no effect on the cholesterol in your blood.
Mhm.
So he said you can eat oysters and eggs, and that doesn't change the cholesterol levels in your blood. He said that you shouldn't eat these foods because they have saturated fat in them, but that actually has no bearing on your cholesterol levels either. And saturated fat, people say, well, think of your arteries as pipes, and the saturated fat's going to clog your pipes like it clogs your kitchen drain.
Right.
But, the body is a tropical place. Our body is warm, and saturated fats in the body are soft. And if you don't have enough saturated fat in your cell membranes, they'll be floppy, they'll be leaky, and they won't have good integrity. And that's why we need saturated fats. That's why all warm-blooded animals make saturated fat. That's why the cow which is a vegetarian, right? But
Right.
the fat on the cow is saturated. It's because the cow needs the saturated fat in her body for the body to function properly. So we really need to get over this idea that saturated fats are bad. Now, back to cholesterol.
Yeah.
The whole cholesterol thing, again, it was one of the first things that they could measure in the blood. And because vegetable oils didn't have any cholesterol in them, they started measuring cholesterol levels in people's blood. This was kind of a dictate that they came from on high to make you afraid of cholesterol. And then they were going to tell you to avoid foods with cholesterol in them, that was the vegetable oil industry behind that one.
Right.
And then take drugs to lower your cholesterol. That was the pharmaceutical industry behind that. I think what people need to know is that for women of any age and for men over the age of 60, the higher your cholesterol, the longer you live. That is a really important thing to know. If you're a man under 60, if your cholesterol is over about 350, how many patients do you have that are male under 60 with their cholesterol over 350? You've probably seen 2 or 3 in your whole career, right?
Yeah.
Rare. It's rare.
Yeah.
You are slightly more at risk for heart disease. Slightly, not a huge amount. And it doesn't mean the cholesterol is causing the heart disease. It probably means that you're under a lot of stress and your body is producing cholesterol because all your stress hormones are made out of cholesterol. All your sex hormones are made out of cholesterol. So you want to take a pill to lower your cholesterol, guys? It's going to lower your testosterone.
Right.
Gals, it's going to lower your progesterone. Really? You want to do that? I mean, yeah, there's so much fraud and just deceit involved in this cholesterol business.
Wow.
And it's very lucrative. And, doctors are kind of bribed. If you're in a practice and you don't write enough prescriptions for cholesterol lowering medication, not only is your own bonus docked, but the bonus of every other doctor in your practice is docked.
Oh,
so
my
there's
gosh.
Tremendous peer pressure to write these prescriptions.
That's criminal.
Yeah, it is. It's racketeering is what it is.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And what are the side effects of these drugs? Well, one is erectile dysfunction.
Right.
Muscle wasting, because you need cholesterol for healthy muscles.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a lot of heart failure because the heart's a muscle.
Right.
You get muscle failure. You get difficulty walking. You get tremendous back pains. You get Parkinson's because the nervous system requires cholesterol. And you get depression because cholesterol is required for the serotonin receptors in the brain. And so all of a sudden you just feel terrible, And then they have a prescription for your depression, see?
Right, yeah. Another thing, yeah, another drug. Okay, wow. So some of the best places to get cholesterol are whole foods like chicken.
Well,
liver,
yes.
right?
No. Your body makes cholesterol. So even if you're not eating cholesterol, your body can make it, although eating cholesterol kind of spares your body from having to make it. But there's very little correlation between the amount of cholesterol you eat and what your cholesterol levels are. That has a lot more to do with whether you're fighting some kind of disease like cancer. You need cholesterol to fight cancer. Whether you're under a lot of stress, that's a big one because you need cholesterol to make stress hormones. Okay, so that's adults. But children do not make cholesterol. Babies and children do not make cholesterol. And it's essential for their brain development, their growth, their hormone production, the integrity of the gut. It requires a lot of cholesterol. So, and this is kind of normal. Babies and children don't make a lot of things because, they're not up to speed yet. So we have to supply that in the diet. And starting with mother's milk. Mother's milk is very high in cholesterol and contains special enzymes to ensure 100% assimilation of the cholesterol. Baby formula in this country does not contain cholesterol. It's made with skim milk and vegetable oils. Now, if you buy formula for an animal, like a calf, the third ingredient is animal fat, because they know that these animals require cholesterol for normal growth,
Right.
but not for human babies. That's too expensive to put cholesterol, whole milk in formula.
Yeah.
So then, as the child is growing, the baby foods should be very high in cholesterol. We recommend egg yolk and pureed poultry liver as the first foods for babies.
Wow.
Gives the highest cholesterol foods, so their brain and nervous system develop normally. And then we recommend, and also they're going to get the fat soluble vitamins in a good balance in those three foods.
Wow. Mind blown.
The three fat soluble vitamins in the two foods. Yeah.
Right. So, what is the age where a person starts making their own cholesterol and these other factors?
Yes, I don't know, and I'm sure it varies from child to child, but
Makes
certainly the
sense.
first 7 years, you really want to stress these very rich foods for the baby.
Wow.
Lots of butter. The other thing I'm very concerned about is that they're telling moms not to give their babies salt. Pregnant women shouldn't eat salt. Nursing women shouldn't eat salt, and you shouldn't put salt on baby's food. Well, that's a kind of genocide, really, because we really need salt. Again, for neurological development, for digestion, and for many other things, hormone production. And this idea that babies shouldn't have salt is really, really a bad idea.
Yeah, that's intense, actually.
Yeah.
The way you present it, like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, but it makes a lot of sense. And obviously, we see this when working with people, they get more fat in their diet, healthy sources of fat and whatnot, and they just do better. So I can speak to that
Yeah.
clinically.
And
For
one
sure.
thing is that their blood sugar will be more stable.
Yeah.
The more fat you eat with your meal, and not the vegetable oils, but not the plant fats, but the animal fats, really do help stabilize blood sugar for two reasons. One is because they just release into the bloodstream slowly, but also because they nourish the adrenal glands, and the adrenal glands have a lot to do with blood sugar levels.
Right.
So,
That makes sense.
and I learned that myself. I suffered from low blood sugar. I had to eat every 2 or 3 hours, would get ravenously hungry, and couldn't function, unless I had some food. And that's one of the things that got me on this path, because I kind of learned on my own that if I ate a lot of butter with each meal, I didn't get low blood sugar, So.
Yeah, that's always the best verification sometimes, is seeing it right in your own life. So amazing. Okay, and then you mentioned a few times about fats being important for emotional stability and mental health. Why is that specifically?
Well, one reason, I mean, there's many reasons, but one reason is there is a special type of fat that is only in animal fats. And it's called arachidonic acid. It's an omega-6 fatty acids. And there's a little bit in butter and egg yolks and liver and all animal fats. There's none in any kind of vegetable fat, not even the so-called good ones like coconut oil and olive oil.
Yeah.
But it's in all animal fats. And arachidonic acid has many uses in the body. 11% of the brain is arachidonic acid, should be. Okay. But one of the things the body does with arachidonic acid is make endocannabinoids. So we make our own marijuana in the body. We have receptors for that marijuana,
right.
And it's tightly regulated, and we don't get addicted. Well, except that it's nice to feel. I like to say you should feel high all the time.
Nice.
And what do these endocannabinoids do? Well, they make you calm. They make you keep you from being too stressed. They just make you feel good, make you happy. And they're only in animal fats. And so we have to ask ourselves, we have a nation now that's addicted, whether it's to marijuana or sugar, alcohol, cigarettes, other kinds of drugs, or all kinds of weird behaviors that, temporarily raise the levels of feel-good chemicals. And is it because, as a nation, we've turned our back on animal fats and are eating the plant-based fats and the vegetable oils? We have
Oh
to
my
ask that
goodness.
question, because your body can't make these chemicals if you're not eating animal fats.
I'm just having a kind of an epiphany here myself. We have had such an increase in the last few years with the type of symptoms that people come in with that very much parallel, more situations where there's depression or some sort of mental or emotional
Yes.
dysfunction that they're
Yes.
they're coming in and wanting help with because it's they're the mainstream or conventional methods that they may be trying aren't working. But this is a piece I haven't.
And instability. There's a kind of instability.
Yeah,
And I think it happens more in women than men, because the women are trying to be good and keep their weight down. And
right.
the so I think it's one woman on five in this country is on antidepressants. One woman on over 50, I think it's one in five, 20%. Yeah, and these are horrible, horrible addictive drugs.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Terrible
I can
side
speak to that.
effects.
So, a person, you mentioned they can only get that particular type of nutrient from animal fat. So, is that any animal fats, or there's some that have more of a concentration? Or
More than others. Again, I think the bird fats are higher in arachidonic acid, but lard is full of it. Lard is really high in vitamin D and also high in vitamin K. And liver, of course, is high in vitamin A,
Mhm.
like calf's liver.
Okay.
But poultry liver is high in all three.
Interesting.
So I had a lovely friend from Hungary, and we were talking about liver, and she said, "Oh, well, we ate liver once a week. We were told to by the doctors. We knew it was healthy, but we always cooked it in lard, and because we thought it was missing something if we didn't cook it in lard." Well, there's a very scientific explanation for this, which is that you've got the high vitamin A food, the liver.
Mhm.
If you cook it in lard, you are combining it with the vitamin D and the vitamin K. Isn't that neat? And she
So,
was absolutely right. It was missing something if you didn't
right.
cook it in lard. Yeah.
This traditional knowledge, it seems like so much of it is just there and the different vested interests of.
It's very precious. And of course, most scientists will tell you don't listen to your grandparents. It's just superstition. The first book written on baby and child care was by a man named Holt, Dr. Holt, and he specifically said, don't let your grandmother or your mother tell you what to do, because it's just superstition.
Wow.
And our view is very different. We need to be talking to these people before they go and finding out what they believed, because almost always it's based on some kind of science. And we like to look for the scientific validation of traditional foodways. So I say to everyone, talk to your grandmother. What did they believe? What did they what did they tell you? I know my mother was from the South, and she cooked chicken broth, and she said, cooked chicken broth is good for you. It'll give you beautiful skin, and you should have lots of chicken broth. She didn't know why, but we know why now, because chicken broth is full of collagen, and that nourishes your skin and your gut and your joints and basically everything.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So, we've talked a bit about how fats help with the development, and then as we grow up, we need them to be able to function mentally. And can you speak to how fats affect our energy levels and how we can operate with vitality in life as we grow and live our busy lives?
Really good question. We get, I think it's about 4 times more energy from the metabolism of fats than carbohydrates. I think it's 138 to about 40 units of ATP. So it's quite a big difference.
Wow.
And we need a lot more vitamins and enzymes to make the energy out of carbohydrates than we do out of fats. So fats are our best energy source. Traditional cultures understood that. I know, for example, I give the example of the Swiss athletes drank bowls of cream. They wanted
Really?
those fats and during the athletic contests.
Wow.
So just biochemically, we know that. Also, the fats keep the blood sugar level stable. So you always do have that glucose in your blood for energy as well. Fats nourish the brain. And anyone who suffers from low blood sugar can tell you when your blood sugar is low, your brain doesn't work.
Yes.
Just it's hard to think, concentrate.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that. So just a question that came to mind. So you're trying to get a lot of fat from the meats that we eat, you know, poultry. Is it necessary to, melt the fat and make it into a broth, or just eat it while we're, from a steak, or, what's the best way to get this fat? It seems like it's kind of daunting to eat a lot of fat sometimes. So.
Well, the saturated fats are very stable, so they can be melted, they can be cooked, but they can also be eaten cold. Personally, I just love a cold slice of roast beef with that hard white fat. I think it's delicious. Some people don't
Yeah,
like it.
I do too.
Yeah, plenty of ways to do it. I always say, what's the purpose of vegetables? Well, the purpose of vegetables is to put butter on them, to be a vehicle for butter. Put so much butter on your bread, you see teeth marks in the butter. We cook in lard, or if I really want to fry something crisp, we cook in tallow. So to get, the fats are highly caloric, and we say, well, 50% of your diet should be calories from fat. That doesn't mean that 50% of the food you eat should be fat. If you put butter on your vegetables,
Right.
and that's probably about 80% of the calories is going to be fat, even though you're certainly eating more vegetables than butter. So just because it sounds like really like you're eating these huge amounts of fat, but it's the calories. You want the huge amount of calories from fat. And that doesn't mean that you're eating a lot of fats, but you definitely need them.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And the food tastes so much better when you put fat on it. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Anytime people tell me to eat bacon and, high fatty meats, I'm like, okay, this must be good.
Yeah.
Right.
Eggs and bacon is a great American breakfast. And the traditional American diet, was eggs and bacon for breakfast. That is a wonderful start to the day, and it's a better breakfast than most people get anywhere else in the world. And we've been made to be afraid of this breakfast and not give it to our kids. Instead, we give them cereal, cold cereal, which is actually an anti-nutrient. It actually will rob the child of nutrients, and there's no food value in it anyway. So parents needn't be afraid of eggs and bacon for their children for breakfast, and some sourdough bread and a lot of butter on it. And I promise you, your children will do better in school. They'll be happier. They won't be as fidgety. They won't have as many tantrums. It's a great breakfast. Something that we have here in the Mid-Atlantic is something called scrapple, and it's a Pennsylvania Dutch food that is all the scraps from when they butchered the pig, and they cook them all up in broth, and they add cornmeal, and they put it in a mold, make a kind of loaf out of it, and you slice it, and you cook it in lard. And I always say this is the best way to get your organ meats that I can think of. It's delicious, and that's another wonderful breakfast food.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Never had that. Okay, awesome. So we have fats helping with the growing of the body, maintaining of the body, giving us lots of energy. How do healthy fats affect us as we are trying to increase our healthy lifespan?
Well, they will contribute to longevity for sure. I wrote a book called Nourishing Traditions, and I had a chapter on the blue zones. And naturally, what they tell us about the blue zones is completely wrong. The guy who wrote the book he had an agenda, which was to promote vegetarianism.
Mm.
But when he actually describes a high fat, high meat diet for these blue zones. But then he says they were vegetarian. So I don't know how they get away with it. But these zones of longevity with a lot of meat in the diet, a lot of fats. And I always point to my husband's family. My husband's 96.
Wow.
And yeah, both his parents lived over 100. He has an aunt who's 102. He had an uncle who lived to 104. Very long lived people. And they were people who liked plain food. They're from New Zealand, so lots of butter, lots of shellfish,
Mm.
and they ate organ meats. Grew up on farms, and when they killed a lamb, the first night they ate what was called lamb fry, which was the liver and the kidneys.
Oh, wow.
So, and everything grass fed, right?
Right.
Lots of eggs, pork. It was a high meat, wonderful seafood also.
Well, okay, makes sense. A lot of high quality fat in all of that.
One of the things he told me is that when he was a child, his father would take him fishing. And when they caught a fish, the first thing they ate, they would gut it, and there was a little bit of flesh behind the eye. And they always ate that raw. And he said you could only eat a tiny bit of it because it was so rich, and that would be full of vitamin A. And he said then they ate the roe, and they ate that raw too. And that would be your vitamin D right there.
Wow.
He said we did this with every fish we caught. Then we brought the fish home and we fried it in tallow, and put a batter on it and fried it in tallow.
Wow. Okay. So you mentioned the roe. I'm not familiar with that term.
Oh, the eggs, the
The
fish
egg.
roe.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Fish roe. Okay. Wow.
One of the things that Dr. Price described, so all of these cultures had special foods for preconception, for men and women to eat before conception, for the woman while she was pregnant, nursing, and then for the baby during growth. And one of these, it was often liver or fish liver, but another one was fish eggs.
Mm.
And if they could get fish eggs, that was a very important food for babies. I had a Chinese woman tell me when she was growing up, her grandmother brought her fish eggs, and the reason she did it, she said it would make her good at arithmetic. And probably a lot of other things.
Yeah, but that's interesting. Brain food, basically.
It's brain food, yeah.
Yeah.
So I get the least expensive caviar is a white caviar, and
Okay.
I try to eat about 2 ounces every week.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We'll start recommending caviar.
Mm.
Okay, great. So this makes a lot of sense. Now, you've mentioned a few times that there are specific foods that have been recommended in different traditional cultures for fertility and for having a successful birth. In
Yes.
our modern world, is there a guideline that applies to how we might do that now?
Yes, we have a pregnancy diet, and we actually have a fridge magnet for our pregnancy diet
Oh, wow.
that involves starting with raw milk, and that is another sacred food,
Mhm.
that they have a glass or two of raw milk every day, that they have liver 2 or 3 times a week, one way or another, pate, liverwurst, and that they eat fish eggs if they can. And then meat and plenty of butter.
Right.
And our babies are just gorgeous. Usually they have very easy birth, and we have a little something called the Healthy Baby Gallery in our journal, and we have pictures of these wonderful babies with every issue.
Wow.
And that's what keeps us going.
Yeah.
Is these beautiful babies. They're reversing the trend to physical degeneration that Dr. Price described.
Right.
They're healthy, they're happy, they meet their milestones, they have broad faces, and typically they don't need braces.
Wow.
So the parents may be spending a little more on their food, but they don't have to pay the orthodontist.
Right. And all
And
the
naturally
other,
straight teeth, yeah.
all the other things that happen. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so very similar. It's the theme of all of this is high quality, high fat food.
Yes.
And you know,
And not to be afraid of the animal fats. We say eat like your ancestors. Sometimes you have to go back 3 or 4 generations to really eat the way your ancestors ate.
right.
Now, I haven't mentioned sugar yet because, that's new to the human diet.
Yeah.
And what I can say is if you're eating plenty of animal fats, you won't crave sugar as much.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
And really be careful with your children. Now, that doesn't mean you can't ever have any sweet things. And we recommend maple syrup and maple sugar, honey,
Right.
natural sweeteners in moderation. That's fine.
Okay.
We can use that fine. But because I don't think we should be really strict with our kids either.
Right.
They have a sweet taste in their mouth, and that needs to be satisfied.
Right.
So make them desserts. I did a lot of ice cream when my kids were growing up, made with cream and egg yolks and maple syrup.
Yeah.
And I don't have any qualms about giving that kind of dessert to kids.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. We definitely have noticed when your kids have that healthy fats and whatnot, there's just a calmer atmosphere in their life in general. There's less tantrums and less
sugar roller coaster.
Right, exactly. So they can even be eating some sugar, but if they have the fats with them,
yes,
it makes a big difference. Okay, incredible data. So I had some notes here. I just want to make sure we covered everything I was hoping to cover here. Oh yeah, so there's been a lot of information right now about maintaining your health, having a strong immune system, and there's been a lot of propaganda about things that have gone on. How do healthy fats in this traditional lifestyle fit in with protecting ourselves in that way?
Well, first and foremost, your immune system is absolutely dependent on vitamin A. So these fats are going to give you vitamin A. And also the saturated fats support the production of immune cells.
Oh.
Saturated fats, they support receptors. They support enzyme production and enzymatic processes. Mm-hmm. So again, these fats are, they're just used for everything.
Yeah.
So yes, they'll help you have a healthy immune system. Now, one of the things that I've written about is EMF, electromagnetic frequencies.
Sure.
I believe I'm being the contrarian again, I believe that this current illness they call COVID is actually radiation poisoning from microwaves. And microwaves is Wi-Fi, 5G, all this. And one of the things that we've argued is that it's really important to have a lot of saturated fats in your diet to protect yourself against this, because the saturated fats help your body have really smooth, robust cell membranes, mm-hmm. and that the water in your cells structures itself against those cell membranes if they're smooth and robust and have plenty of saturated fat in them. And that's your wiring in your cells. So you want good, strong, it's like having good insulation on your wires in your house. And that's highly protective against EMF.
Makes sense. Yeah. No, I checked out your book, The Contagion Myth, on that. Incredible.
Another paradigm.
Made a lot more sense than other things that are being shown.
Yeah. So we have argued that germs do not cause disease. Bacteria often are there when you have an illness because they're the garbage collectors. They're the cleanup crew.
Right.
And they may be doing other beneficial things also, but they're not the cause. Any more than if you found a dead dog with maggots on it, you wouldn't assume that the maggots killed the dog, right?
Right.
But they're saying if you've got a disease and we found this bacteria in your blood or whatever, then why do we assume that the bacteria caused the disease?
Right.
Just an assumption. As far as viruses are concerned, that is gets into just complete fraud. The whole discipline, it's not a discipline, but of virology is wrong because they they never find these little tiny things they calling viruses in your blood or your excretions, you know, your
Hmm.
snot or anything like that. They never find them there. They
Hmm.
only find them if they do a tissue culture and starve and poison the cell, and then they get these breakdown products and they call them viruses. And these are supposed to be what's attacking you, you know, making you sick and stuff.
Right.
And there's no evidence of that at all.
Right. And again, the healthy fats and the healthy diet would help the body produce the things that are supposed to be there and make you
Yes.
operate efficiently.
Well, keep the cells from breaking down.
Right.
But also, if your cells are breaking down, these things that are produced, they're calling them viruses, but the real word is exosomes,
Sure.
and they have beneficial properties. They take they encapsulate poisons and take them out of the cell, and they also communicate with other cells and say, "Hey, this is coming. You need to do this or this."
Right.
They have DNA inside them. That's like a little antenna.
Right.
So we've just been taught to be afraid of everything that's essential for life. We're afraid of bacteria. We're afraid of viruses when they're actually helpful. We're afraid of raw milk. We're afraid of cholesterol. We're afraid of saturated fat. We're afraid of sunlight. Okay,
Right.
and all of these things are so. And we're afraid of salt again, which is essential for life. So you know, in the Bible it says, "Fear not." And I think
Yeah.
first and foremost, we need to get over our fear.
Yeah.
And when we approach anything without fear, then we can really think about it and look at it and say, is this really true? And you know, does this make sense that the kind of fats we've been eating for thousands of years aren't good for us? You know,
Right.
so first thing is to not be afraid.
Yes, that makes so much sense. If you remove that fear, that kind of wall, then you're able to look with your own sense and make a lot more understanding possible of what you're being told. So
Yes, right.
totally agree with that. We always try to educate so much when
Yeah.
working with clients. So I know that the way you present information and how your books are received, there's been numerous times where we'll recommend one of your books to a client, and then all of a sudden, three or four of her friends have one of your cookbooks or something about fertility. So I've seen that happen, personally, so I can attest to that as well. So, okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Sally. I really appreciate you being on.